I pulled into my driveway at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, 3 whole days earlier than my husband expected me home. The house was dark, too dark. Only one dim light glowed from the upstairs bedroom window, bleeding weakly through the October mist. My shoulders ached from the long flight back from Portland. My lower back stiff from hours crammed into an economy seat. All I wanted was a hot shower, clean sheets, and the quiet comfort of my own bed. Then I saw the car. A silver sedan was parked along the curb, just close enough to look intentional. Not a delivery driver, not a neighbor stopping by. The hood was still warm when I brushed my hand past it. I could feel the heat through the thin leather of my glove. The air was cold. My stomach was not. We did not know anyone with a silver sedan. Our neighbors drove oversized trucks and aging SUVs. This car did not belong here. I stood there longer than I should have, keys heavy in my hand, my breath coming shallow. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I told myself there was a reasonable explanation. I told myself that marriage was built on trust. My hand was shaking anyway. When I finally reached the front door, I moved slowly, deliberately. I slid the key into the lock and turned it with barely a sound. I had oiled the hinges myself last month after they started squeaking. At the time, it felt like such a small, boring act of home maintenance. Now, it felt like preparation. The living room was empty. No television glow. No background noise. Just silence. The kind that presses against your ears until your own heartbeat feels too loud. Then I heard it. Laughter. Soft, low, intimate. It floated down from upstairs, tangled with murmured voices and the unmistakable rhythm of familiarity. One of the voices belonged to my husband. The other voice was female. My chest tightened so suddenly it felt like a fist had closed around my lungs. Each step toward the staircase felt heavier than the last, like gravity itself was trying to pin me in place. My legs moved anyway. 8 years in this house had taught me its secrets. Which steps creaked, which ones stayed quiet. I avoided the noisy ones without thinking, muscle memory guiding me upward. The bedroom door was open just a crack, not enough to announce my presence, just enough to let the sounds spill out into the hallway where I stood frozen. My husband was sitting on our bed. The bed with the slate blue comforter I picked out at a clearance sale in downtown Raleigh. The bed with the white pillows we bought during our 5th anniversary trip, laughing about how ridiculous it was to spend that much money on something meant to be slept on. His fingers were buried in a woman's long, dark hair, stroking it slowly, reverently, as if it were something fragile and precious. The woman leaned into him, relaxed, comfortable, at home. She was wearing something silky, cream-colored, the fabric catching the warm lamplight. My vision sharpened, and with it came the realization that made my blood go cold. She was wearing my robe, the silk robe my husband had given me for Christmas 2 years ago. The one he said made me look elegant, the one I wore on quiet mornings when I drank coffee by the window. My robe, on her body, in my bed. My husband's voice drifted into the hallway, low and tender. I had not heard that tone directed at me in months. "You are so good to me," he murmured. Not like my boring wife, who only cares about her stupid job. The words landed like blunt force trauma. Boring wife, stupid job. I thought about the late nights I worked to help pay for this house. The promotions I chased so we could live comfortably. The business trips I took because someone had to be responsible. I thought about how many times I canceled plans because he said he needed me home. How often I softened my opinions, quieted my ambitions, shrank myself because he said I was too much. The woman giggled, a light, childish sound. "She does not appreciate you," she said. "I do." Her voice was familiar. Too familiar. My brain struggled to catch up, drowning in what my eyes were seeing. I must have shifted, or maybe my shadow crossed the doorway, because suddenly, both of them turned. Time stopped. The woman's face came fully into view, and something inside me snapped clean in half. This was not a stranger. This was not a coworker or a woman from a bar. This was someone who had sat at my dinner table, Someone who had hugged me and called me family. Someone who had cried on my shoulder just 3 months ago about her divorce and how unfair life had been. This was my husband's younger sister. Her eyes widened in terror. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked like someone who had just been shoved into icy water. My husband scrambled off the bed so fast he nearly fell. His face drained of color, pale and empty, like a mask stripped of its paint. "Vanessa, this is not..." He could not finish a sentence. I did not want him to. My hands were shaking, but not from heartbreak, not from tears. They were shaking with rage that had been building for 3 weeks. My name is Vanessa. I am 36 years old. I work in corporate strategy for a logistics firm headquartered in Charlotte. I travel often. I pay attention to numbers. I notice patterns. And I am not stupid. 3 weeks ago, I already knew. My right hand moved on its own, pulling my phone from my jacket pocket. I opened the camera app and pressed record. The red dot appeared, steady and unforgiving. It captured everything. My husband's face twisted in fear, his sister wrapped in my robe, the rumpled sheets of the bed we had shared for nearly a decade. "I want both of you to listen very carefully," I said. My voice came out calm, flat, so cold it did not sound like it belonged to me. Before my husband could speak again, I raised my hand. "Quiet." He flinched. "Good. 3 weeks ago," I continued, my eyes moving between them, "I noticed some strange charges on our joint credit card." The woman's breathing hitched. Jewelry I never received. Restaurant bills from places I was never taken. Hotel rooms booked right here in our city. On nights you told me you were working late. My husband's lips parted, but no words came out. "So I hired someone," I said. "A private investigator. His name is Samuel Crow." They both went very still. "He found the money you stole," I said, looking directly at my husband now. "Over $200,000 taken from your clients. Small amounts, spread out, hidden through shell accounts." The woman made a sound that did not sound human. "And he found the plane tickets," I continued. 2 one-way tickets to Belize next month. He found communications about fake passports. He found everything. My husband swayed, like his legs were no longer sure what they were meant to do. "That is not all," I said, turning back to her. "He also discovered that this is not the first time you have done this. That your ex-husband did not leave because of irreconcilable differences. He left because you tried to drain his business accounts." She shook her head violently. "That is not..." "I have bank records," I said. "Emails, messages, transaction logs." I lifted my phone slightly, the red dot still blinking. "And now I have this." That was when the doorbell rang. Once. Then again. Harder. I smiled. For the first time that night. "That would be Detective Lauren Mitchell," I said calmly. "I called her from my car before I came inside. She is very interested in speaking with both of you about financial fraud." The color never came back to my husband's face. His sister began to hyperventilate, breaths coming sharp and fast. Her knees buckled and she collapsed onto the floor, clutching the silk robe like it might save her. My husband rushed toward her, cradling her face with shaking hands. The way he touched her, the panic in his eyes, the tenderness he showed her in that moment made my stomach churn. This was not just an affair. This was something darker, something rotten to its core. Heavy footsteps climbed the stairs. Slow, certain. I did not move. I did not speak. I stood there, phone steady in my hand, as everything they thought they had hidden finally caught up with them. And I knew, with absolute clarity, that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. 3 weeks earlier, I stood in almost the same spot in our bedroom, but the air felt normal then. Safe. Ordinary. The kind of ordinary I used to believe in. I had just gotten home from a conference in Nashville. My suitcase lay open on the floor, half unpacked. I was hanging blouses in the closet, dropping dirty laundry into the hamper, moving through the familiar rhythm of a life I thought I understood. Downstairs, my husband had the television on, some sports show playing in the background. I remember thinking the house felt quiet in a strange way. Quiet like it was holding its breath. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. Not because I suspected anything, but because I always checked our finances after a trip. It was habit. Years ago, when we first bought the house, money was tight. I learned to track every bill, every payment, every recurring charge. That habit never left me, even when our income grew and we started pretending we were comfortable. The bank portal loaded slowly. I entered the password. The statement appeared line by line. Grocery store charges, gas stations, utilities, normal. Then I saw it. A charge from a boutique jewelry store in Uptown Charlotte. $860. The date hit me first. It was a Tuesday. The Tuesday I had been standing in a hotel bathroom in Nashville, applying concealer under my eyes before a morning presentation. My heart did a small, panicked stutter. For a second, I tried to protect myself with optimism. Maybe it was a gift. Our anniversary was coming up. Maybe he was finally making an effort. I kept scrolling. A charge from a high-end restaurant I had never been to with him. $212. Same night. My fingers went cold on the keyboard. I scrolled faster, the way you scroll when you already know you are not going to like what you find, but you cannot stop yourself. There were more. Hotel charges. A boutique place right in our city. 4 separate stays in 1 month. Always one night. Always on nights I was out of town. My stomach flipped so hard, I had to put my palm flat on the desk to steady myself. Why would my husband need a hotel room in the city where we lived? I heard his footsteps on the stairs. Instinct kicked in. I slammed the laptop shut like it had burned me. He walked into the bedroom carrying a glass of water, wearing the sweatpants I bought him the previous winter. He looked normal, too normal. That was the part that still unsettles me when I think about it. How easily he could wear normal like a costume. "You okay?" he asked, glancing at me. "You look pale." "Just tired," I said, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. The trip was brutal. "I think I'm going to take a shower and go to bed early." He nodded, not concerned, not curious, just vaguely annoyed, like my exhaustion was an inconvenience he did not want to deal with. "I'm going to stay up and watch the game," he said, already turning away. After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the closed laptop. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately, demand an explanation, throw the statement in his face and watch him squirm. But another part of me, the part that has kept me alive in boardrooms full of men who smile while they sharpen knives, whispered one sentence into my mind. "Do not move without proof." The next morning, when he went down to his home office, I called Beth. Beth had been my best friend since college. She was the kind of friend who did not waste time with comfort lies. She was a lawyer now, sharp and relentless, and if anyone would tell me the truth without cushioning it, it was her. "I need your advice," I said, standing in the laundry room with the door shut, voice low. "And I need you to be honest, even if it hurts." I told her everything. The jewelry charge, the restaurant, the hotel rooms, the dates that matched my travel schedule, the way my husband had been distant for months, the little comments he made about my job, my ambition, my body, the way he acted like I was a burden he tolerated instead of a partner he chose. On the other end of the line, I heard her breathing shift, casual to serious. "Vanessa," she said carefully, "you need to consider the possibility that he is cheating." Hearing it out loud made my throat close. It was no longer a fear floating in my head. It was a spoken truth with sharp edges. "I know," I whispered, "but I need proof. Not suspicions, not vibes. I need something that will hold up when he lies." Beth was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I know someone who can help. A private investigator. His name was Samuel Crow. Former police. Now he specialized in financial fraud, not just infidelity." Beth said he was discreet, professional, the kind of man who did not do drama, only facts. She asked if she could give him my number. I said yes. Samuel called that afternoon. His voice was calm, firm, the voice of someone who had seen the worst of people and never seemed surprised anymore. We met at a coffee shop on the other side of town, the kind of place where no one lingered and no one looked at you twice. I chose a corner table, back to the wall. I did not know why I did that. Instinct, maybe. Like I needed to protect my spine. Samuel arrived exactly on time. Mid-60s, silver hair, weathered hands, eyes that did not blink much. I slid copies of the credit card statement across the table. He studied them without emotion. "Tell me about your husband," he said. So I did. I told him my husband worked as an independent accountant. He had clients who trusted him with everything. Small business owners, retirees, couples planning their future. People who believed he was honest because he wore pressed shirts and spoke in calm tones. I told him about the distance, the late nights, the excuses. Samuel listened, took notes in a small leather notebook. When I finished, he looked up. "In my experience," he said, "hotel charges and secret purchases usually mean exactly what you think they mean." I stared into my coffee until the cream swirled into nothing. "I still want to know," I said. "I want the truth." Samuel nodded once. "Then you will have it." For the next 2 weeks, I lived in 2 realities. In one reality, I was the wife. I smiled over breakfast. I asked about his day. I nodded when he complained about traffic. I touched his arm when he wanted to look like we were fine. In the other reality, I was waiting for the call that would detonate my life. It came when I was in Richmond for a client meeting. My phone vibrated during a lunch break. Samuel's name lit up the screen. His voice was different this time, still calm, but heavier. "Vanessa," he said, "I need to meet with you as soon as possible." My blood went cold. "Did you catch him?" I asked. "I found more than that," Samuel said. "Much more." I flew home the next morning and met him at the same coffee shop. He laid the evidence out like a surgeon laying instruments on a tray. Bank statements, transaction records, email printouts, a map of transfers that made my head spin. "Your husband has been stealing," Samuel said, blunt as a blade. "Not from you, from his clients." My stomach dropped. "What?" I whispered. "He has been siphoning small amounts," Samuel continued. "A few thousand here, a few thousand there, moving money through shell accounts to blur the trail. I have tracked over $200,000 so far." My hands started shaking. I pressed them under the table, trying to hide it from myself. "Are you sure?" I asked, and my voice sounded thin. Samuel did not blink. "I have done this for decades. The evidence is solid." He slid another folder toward me. "But that is not the worst part." I forced myself to open it. A bank account in a name I recognized instantly. His sister. Not mine. His. The woman who hugged me on holidays. The woman who called me family. The woman I had comforted when she cried about her divorce. His sister's name was on the account. My mouth went dry. "No," I said immediately. "She lives states away." Samuel's expression did not change. "She has been here," he said, "more often than you know." He showed me messages, transfers, conversations that were not sibling-like, not even close. The words on the page turned my stomach. Then he showed me something worse. Hotel security stills, grainy but undeniable. My husband and his sister checking in together, her hand on his arm, his hand too low on her back. Their faces close, laughing like lovers. I stared until my vision blurred. This was not a simple affair. This was twisted, sick, a kind of betrayal that made my skin feel like it did not belong to me anymore. Samuel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "There is history," he said. "They tried a similar scheme years ago with her ex-husband's business circle. He discovered it. He chose divorce and silence instead of public charges." I swallowed hard. "And now?" I asked. Samuel slid 2 printed confirmations across the table. 2 one-way tickets, not to somewhere romantic, not to somewhere temporary, to Belize. Departure in 4 weeks. "They are planning to leave the country," Samuel said. I found messages about new identities, fake passports being arranged, a clean exit. My throat tightened. "So they were going to steal," I said slowly, "and disappear." Samuel nodded. "And leave you," he added, to explain whatever collapses behind them. I sat back, and for a moment I could not breathe. My husband, my home, my life, all of it built on lies. And I had been the one carrying the weight, making the payments, keeping the lights on, believing loyalty was enough to hold a marriage together. "What do I do?" I asked. Samuel did not hesitate. "You go to the police." I stared at the table. I should have nodded. I should have agreed. I should have marched straight into a precinct and handed them everything. But something in me wanted more. Not revenge, certainty. A moment so undeniable that no one could ever twist it into a misunderstanding. No one could ever look at me and say I was overreacting. "I want to catch them," I said, my voice low. "In the act, I want proof that cannot be explained away." Samuel studied my face, long enough for me to wonder if he was going to refuse. Then he nodded once. "Yes," he said. "But you need to be prepared for what you will see." "It already hurts," I replied. "At least this way, they cannot lie." We spent the next hour planning. I had a business trip scheduled for Portland the following week. I would tell my husband I would be gone for 5 days. Long enough for him to feel safe. Long enough for him to drop the mask. Samuel would package every piece of evidence into a secure cloud folder. Beth would ensure my legal footing was clean and airtight. And I would contact a detective Samuel trusted, a woman known for taking financial crimes seriously, Detective Lauren Mitchell. I remember Samuel looking me dead in the eye before we left the coffee shop. "When you make the call," he said, "do not hesitate. Do not soften. Criminals survive on hesitation." I walked out into the afternoon sunlight, feeling like the woman who entered that coffee shop no longer existed. The naive version of me was gone. In her place was someone colder, someone sharper, someone who finally understood that silence was not strength if it only protected the people hurting you. A week later, I boarded my flight to Portland and kissed my husband on the cheek at the airport like everything was fine. He smiled too easily, relief flickering behind his eyes. He thought I was leaving. He did not know I had already started closing the trap. And 3 days later, at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, I sat in my car at the end of my driveway, staring at a silver sedan I did not recognize. My phone was in my hand, one number on the screen, Detective Lauren Mitchell. I pressed call before I even took a breath. "The silence is over," I said quietly when she answered. "And I have everything." Upstairs, laughter floated through my bedroom window. I stepped out of the car and walked toward my front door, like I was walking toward an execution. Except this time, I was not the one about to die. The footsteps stopped just outside the bedroom door. They were heavy, unhurried, the kind of footsteps that did not need permission. My husband froze. His sister looked up from the floor, mascara streaked and eyes wild, clutching my silk robe like it was a lifeline. The room smelled wrong, perfume layered over guilt, sweat, and something rotten underneath it all. The door opened fully. Detective Lauren Mitchell stepped inside like she owned the air, tall, composed, dark blazer, badge clipped at her waist, eyes already scanning the scene with clinical precision. 2 uniformed officers filled the doorway behind her, their expressions neutral, professional, final. For a split second, no one spoke. Then Detective Mitchell's gaze landed on me. "Vanessa Hale?" she asked. "Yes," I said, holding my phone up without stopping the recording. "You have the evidence we discussed." "I do," I replied. "Everything is here." I walked toward her and handed over my phone, careful not to tap the screen. The red dot still blinked. The video captured my husband's face, his sister on the floor, my robe wrapped around her like a grotesque costume. Detective Mitchell skimmed through the footage, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded once. "That will be sufficient," she said. She turned toward my husband. "Michael Hale," she said evenly. "You are under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud." The words landed like a gunshot. "No," he said immediately. "No, this is a mistake." One of the officers stepped forward, already pulling out handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent," Detective Mitchell continued, "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." My husband's knees buckled. "No, Vanessa," he said, his voice cracking as the officer took hold of his arms. "Tell them this is a misunderstanding. We can fix this. We are married. We are a team." The handcuffs clicked shut. The sound echoed through the bedroom, sharp and final. "You stopped being my team the moment you stole from people who trusted you," I said quietly. "You stopped being my husband the moment you brought her into our bed." His sister let out a strangled sound, half sob, half scream. Detective Mitchell turned to her. "Emily Hale," she said, "you are under arrest as an accomplice." "I cannot breathe," Emily gasped, clawing at her chest. "Please, I need help. She is hyperventilating." Detective Mitchell said calmly to the second officer, "Get her water and a paper bag, but do not remove restraints." As the officer moved to comply, Michael twisted toward me, desperation pouring off him in waves. "You do not understand," he said. "You were never home. You were always gone, always choosing work over me. What was I supposed to do? I was lonely." The audacity of it made my vision blur with anger. "So you stole money and slept with your sister," I said, my voice rising despite myself. "Those were your solutions." "She is not really my sister," he snapped, panic morphing into something ugly. "We are not blood related. My parents adopted her. We did nothing wrong." Detective Mitchell's eyebrow lifted slightly. "That distinction will not help you," she said coolly. "Regardless of biology, you are still committing multiple felonies." The officer returned with water and a paper bag. Emily gulped air, her hands shaking violently. When her breathing slowed enough for her to stand, Detective Mitchell read her rights. That was when Emily found her voice. "You are going to regret this," she hissed at me as they guided her toward the door. "You think you are so perfect, so cold. But you are just a heartless woman who does not know how to keep a man happy." I stared at her. This woman had eaten at my table, slept in my guest room, called me family. "If you loved him," I said slowly, "you would not have turned him into a criminal. Real love does not drag someone into darkness." "You do not know anything about love," she spat back. "You are a robot in a power suit." He told me everything. How boring you are. How cold you are in bed. Each word was aimed like a blade, meant to carve doubt into me. But I had already lived with those doubts for 3 weeks. "They are taking her downstairs," Detective Mitchell said firmly. Emily screamed as they led her out. Michael stopped resisting then, his body sagging as if all the fight had drained out of him. "Please," he whispered, looking back at me. "Think about our 8 years. Think about our wedding day. I love you." I walked to the top of the stairs and looked down at him. "I am thinking about those 8 years," I said. "I am thinking about every time I came home exhausted, and you told me I was not enough. Every time I tried to build a future while you were planning to destroy it." "That is not fair," he sobbed. "I was trying." "You were stealing," I said. "There is a difference." Something inside me finally let go. "We are done," I said. "I want a divorce, and I never want to see you again." They led him out of the house. I heard the front door open. I heard shouting fade into the night. I heard car doors slam. Then silence. Detective Mitchell stayed behind, giving me space. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. That was when the adrenaline drained out of me all at once. My legs gave out. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my hands trembling uncontrollably. The tears I had been holding back for weeks finally broke free. "I feel empty," I whispered. "I thought I would feel justice or relief, but I just feel hollow." Detective Mitchell sat nearby, not touching me, just present. "You are allowed to grieve," she said. "Even when someone betrays you, you are still allowed to grieve the life you thought you had." A few minutes later, footsteps pounded up the stairs. "Vanessa," a familiar voice called. Beth burst into the room, eyes wide with fear, until she saw me sitting there alive. "They are gone," I said. "She arrested them." Beth wrapped me in a fierce hug. "You did it," she said. "You were brave." "I do not feel brave," I admitted. "I feel broken." You are allowed to be broken tonight, she replied. Tomorrow we start rebuilding. She was right. I did not sleep in that house again. I stayed with Beth that night, and the next, and the one after. The legal aftermath moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Michael took a plea deal. 5 years in federal prison. Emily received 3. The divorce was finalized without a fight. There was nothing left for him to claim. I sold the house. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new apartment. Sunlight spilling across countertops I had chosen myself. The place was smaller, quieter, honest. Everything here belonged to me. I attended therapy twice a week. I learned to forgive myself for trusting the wrong people. I learned that ambition was not a flaw. Silence was not strength. Love was not sacrifice without boundaries. I took a new job. I rebuilt my finances. I rebuilt myself. One evening, I stood on my balcony with a glass of wine, looking out over the city lights. Somewhere, Michael and Emily were living with the consequences of their choices. I did not feel joy about that. But I did not feel guilt either. I had chosen truth over comfort, justice over silence. Before bed, I opened my journal and wrote one sentence. Today, I chose myself. And for the first time in years, the silence felt peaceful. If this were you, would you have handled it quietly? Or would you have made the call like I did? Was I too harsh? Or was this the only way it could end?